Hello everyone. Today I'm going to show you an amazing way to set up your Figma component library using some of the advanced features that component variants have to offer. Let's get started. Now, to expedite the process, I've already created a set of variants here. So for example, we've got our primary outline, we have our secondary button, and we've got our secondary outline button here. So there's 4 types of buttons within this design. If I grab one out and I've selected it, you can see under my component, we've got a property of button type and we've got the list of different variants we can select from. For example, if I want to change this to a secondary button, I can select secondary and now it's changed its color. Very easy for designers to work with these type of components. Now, how do we push this further? Let's just say that we want to create a state for each of our buttons. For example, right now these have an active state, so they're clickable, but we want to create a disabled state for these buttons as well. So let's just extend our component down, select each of these buttons and duplicate them. So now we've duplicated those. Let's make them a bit opaque. Let's just decrease the opacity. There we go. Let's just say that these are our disabled buttons. We do want to rename them to have the same property name for each of the respective buttons. So for example, this is our button, primary outline button, and this is also a primary outline button, but it's a disabled one. And I'll show you how to get those properties in there as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this. All right, so as you can see in our component, we have an error. So Figma is saying that some of the variants have the same property value, which is going to confuse the application because when you select a particular property, Figma won't know what you're trying to select because there's multiple variants available with the same property name. So how can we make it visible to Figma that these are disabled, but these ones are active? We can add another property in there. So let's just say, we want to do that. We can click on that plus button here, so create component property, and then the type we want to select is a variant. So let's go ahead and do that. So right now it's just going to default to a name of the property as property and our value as default. Let's change that to state, so our button state, and let's just say default, I'll just say active here. So this would apply to all of the variants. Let's select all of our disabled ones here. And as you can see, the state here is active. So we want to change that to disabled. So now the error should disappear. And now we've got 2 different type of properties in our component. So now if I grab this button here, I can select what type of button I want. So for example, let's go secondary outline. And then I can say, hey, you know what? I want it to be disabled. I can do that here as well. The way we can improve this a bit further, instead of having to select the state here, what we could do instead, we can grab the, we can rename the property name here to disabled. That's only if you have one state, for example. We name that to disabled, and for the ones that are not disabled, we're going to say false. And for the ones that are disabled, we're going to say true. So now what's going to happen is we're going to get a little switch within our variant selection. So if I click on that, you see here, it's got disabled and we've got a switch saying that, yes, it's disabled. We can turn it off and now it's enabled. So it's a little trick you can use to make it easier for the designers to select different states for a particular button. All right, we can actually push this even further. So for example, I've created a few icons here. Let's just say that in our component library, we can utilize buttons with an icon appended to the left and an icon appended to the right of the button. But we want the flexibility to choose whether it is or it isn't. So what we can do is, let's just say we can grab this icon here and let's paste it within every single button that we have available. There we go. We've got all those icons there. So right now it's appended to the right. what we can do is we can just change the color of those ones here, and then we're just going to change the color really quickly for all of them. There we go. Last one. Okay, so we've got all of our colors here. Now, like I said before, we want to create a variation of it being appended to the left, and we want to create a variation of it being appended to the right. So we're going to duplicate these buttons and place them on the other side of each one. All right, won't take long. All right, so here we've got now a button with an icon on each side. Now, if I grab this button and I pull it down, traditionally what you have to be doing when variations weren't a thing in Figma, you'd have to literally go in and delete them in order to have your button without the icons. And then you'd find them inside of your layers, and you can enable or disable them however you want. But we can make it easier with the use of advanced variant features. All right, so now that we have our components set up with variants including the left and the right icons, let's work some component magic into this. So for instance, let's select our container for these variants. And now instead of creating another variant property, what we're going to do is instead click on the plus button and create a Boolean value for this component. So what is a Boolean? Boolean is essentially a yes or a no, true or a false, 1 or a 0. It's a value of either one or the other. So right now what we're going to call it is we're going to call it icon left, L for left, and we're going to say true. So let's just create this property. Right now it's not going to do anything. We're going to get a little notifications here saying that it's not being used. However, now let's select every single left icon within these variants. So how can you do that really quickly? Select one of them, and there's a little target crosshair which you can click to select all of the elements that are similar to this. So let's click on that, and you can see we've selected every single icon on the left. So now what you can do is you go to the layer options here, and there's going to be a icon here. So apply Boolean property. So this is going to apply the property that we created. Now you could have done this without creating the Boolean property at the first place, but I just wanted to quickly run you through what that was. So let's click on that, and we can select it from here. So this is where you'd create it if you're creating it from scratch. We've already done it, so we're going to select that one here. So what that does is now we've got a Boolean statement within our variants. So let's just copy this button down here. So imagine we're using this button. Now we've got another property here saying icon L with a switch control. So that's a Boolean, either yes or a no. So now we can actually toggle this icon off or toggle it on, and everything is done within this panel here. So that's the beauty of it. Using it this way, because otherwise if I had to go inside here and delete it from here, I'd have to find it in the layers panel in order to activate it again, which is it's a bit time consuming. But now I can just, let's just toggle that one back on. Now I can just go into my right hand panel, click on that and toggle it off if I don't need it. So we can do literally the same for the right icon. So let's just select all the right icons. Let's go into the layer panel here, click on that, create another property, which will be icon R, and we'll say true as well, create property, and there we have it. So now we've got icon L and icon R. So now we can toggle the icons on and off however we like it. All right, so now that we've added the ability to change whether we want to have icons in our buttons or not, what happens if you want to change the icon itself? Usually what you do is, well, before these features existed, you would have your icon component within your button component. And then when you select that icon, you'd go up to here to the component panel. You'd select the component you want. I've currently only created 4 icon component. So let's just say I want to change it to star. We click on that and it's changed to the star. Now, how can we make it easier for the designers to change the icons within the button, to have everything in the same place? That can be also done with the instance swap property that's available through these variants. So for example, let's select our icons. So let's just select all of our left icons and create this time an instance swap property. So how would we do this? We would go into our component panel here. So you can see this is thumbs up component. And again, we've got the same icon here, which is create instance swap property. So this time when we create one, because we don't have any that we've created in the past, we can't select from a list of different types of properties. So we're going to select one from scratch, create one from scratch. Let's call it left icon type, for instance, and we'll leave it at the current thumbs up component. We're going to create property, and we're going to do the same for our right icon as well. So let's go into our layer, our component panel. Click on that same icon there, and this time you can see L icon type is there, but we want to create one for the right. So let's create another property, icon type, and again we'll leave it at thumbs up and click create. So now what you could do is, what option this gives you is, if you select our component that we've taken from this variant list, now we can select the left icon type from here as well. So I can click on here and I can change it to any other component that I want. So for example, let's make that a star. And now for the right one, we can, create a heart, for instance. There we go. So now we have the ability to change almost everything about this button from this one spot, which is amazing. It saves you so much time as a designer because you don't have to go deep into the layers and start changing everything there. You can do it all from this one section. Now, we can actually take it even further. All right, so one last thing that we can do to improve this component is we can actually give us the ability to update the text from this panel here, rather than going into the actual component, finding the layer that has this text element and doing it from that way. We can actually set it up so that you could select your button and do it over here. How do you do that? So what you could do is you could grab all of the text properties that you have, highlight them all, and under content, we can create a text property value for this particular button. So let's go into, click on that create text property button. And now we're gonna call that our button text. And our default value is button because it's just the default one we've created. Let's just do create property. So now what that gives us is the ability to control everything about the button from one place. So now we've got our button here and we can control the text that it has from here. So for example, hello world. There we go, we've changed that. We can turn off our icons, both of our icons here. We can make it disabled or enabled, and we can even change the type of button that we want. So for example, let's change it to secondary. Let's give it an icon. Let's change the icon from a star to a home. Let's call it, let's say, home for the text as well. Now we've got a home button. All right, so now that I've showed you the features for setting up your variants, let's look at how could we clear this component up so it looks a bit prettier when putting it into your component library. For instance, I don't want to see all of these icons here. It just looks a bit messy. So how can we do that? We can just pretty much select all of these icons. So again, we can click on that crosshair, and this time hold Command Shift H to hide them all. What that does, it just hides them through the Boolean property, because we've already set the Boolean property. Initially we set it to true, so it was showing it, but now when we hit it, it's going to use the Boolean value of false. So if I grab one of these icons from this component, Let's copy it down. You can still see the icons are still available for us to use in our designs. So I hope you like the features that I've shown you here. You could extend these to other different types of components. For instance, if you are working on card components and you want to toggle off or toggle on the thumbnails or like the controls inside your cards, links, text, anything like that, you could do it the same way. So it's a very nice way to set up your component library so it's easy for designers to use. Thank you for watching my video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons below. Thank you.